the Granada Hills Center for Spiritual Living, located in the North San Fernando Valley. If you're watching on live stream tonight, I am Maureen Hoyt, the Minister Emeritus of the Granada Hills Center. And Reverend Nancy is here along with me, who has been here forever. And we welcome you. We honor all who are on their spiritual pathway, who practice their beliefs in faith and love. And if you're new to us tonight for the first time, this is a discussion group that's based on the Ernest Holmes book, Living the Science of Mind. And we start every service at this center with our call to service, which is called Lighting the Flames of Faith. And we perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples, all faiths, all sentient beings come from that one great universal presence, which we call spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. As Vinu lights the first candle, it is for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We light the second candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the third candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the fourth candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. The fifth candle we light for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. The sixth candle we light for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the seventh candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We light the eighth candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the ninth candle for all forms of new thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. We light the 10th candle for all those who are as yet unaware of the power and presence of spirit in their life, and for the space we hold for them at this center, and as Reverend Mike would say, online and in our hearts. As Vinu lights the healing candle, please put silently into the light the names of anyone you wish to have experienced the healing flame of God's eternal love, and most especially the families of Betty Lou Mayer and Marty Laff.
I'm one with the spirit all around me. I'm thankful, so grateful. I trust in God. I surrender. I surrender. I'm one with the spirit all around me. I surrender. I surrender. I trust in God.
Let's just stay here a few more moments together, recognizing the one mind, the one consciousness, the one heart, the one all that is everywhere in everyone, all knowing, all powerful. Knowing that we are one with this divinity, one with this beautiful, gorgeous, glittery God stuff we call love, we call life, we call source. Knowing we are one with all that is wisdom, clarity, community, unity. I know right here and right now that tonight's evening unfolds in divine perfection. That we read and study together these beautiful ideas of the science of mind to expand not only our minds but our hearts, knowing that the effects of what we gather here today together ripples out into our worlds, whether we are here in person or online. Knowing that if we are here by divine appointment, that we hear the right and perfect words and share the right and perfect shares. We leave here connected and uplifted. I'm so grateful to be here tonight, so grateful for this community, for each and every person that is part of this team, part of this co-creation. And it is with this full and grateful heart, I release my word to the Lord, knowing it is all done, knowing it is all love. And together we affirm by saying,
And so it is.
Before we start our discussion tonight, we have a few announcements. On Wednesday, May 14th, Taze meditation will take place in the sanctuary. Come enjoy a midweek reset of peaceful prayer and chanting, facilitated by our very own Catherine Kitty Hack. May 21st at 7 p.m., we're having an open mic night. This will be an evening to share 5-minute original short stories, poems, and more. The theme for the evening is sharing the beauty and strength of overcoming life's challenges. Please RSVP to participate and send a summary of your family-friendly entries to admin@cslgh.org or Ginny, GINNY.gaimari@gmail.com by May 14th. We're still collecting some hygiene items, snacks, etc. for our giving bags. Please see the table out in Sparks Hall to participate in the project. And thank you to all who have contributed. A friendly reminder, Tai Chi class will not be taking place on May 8th and May 29th. Thank you for your understanding. And last but not least, our Law of Attraction group is moving to the third Sundays of the month. Please contact Emily at joyvibrations@gmail.com for Zoom information. Now I will hand this evening over to our Revs. Thank you.
Good. Great.
And thank you. And tonight, we're going to talk about spirituality. What is spirituality? That's our topic. And I think that it is an interesting topic for, especially this group we got here tonight. And when I look at this, and I think about spirituality, I think about, we look back at our history and what we experience and the people around us. But let's look at what this teaching that we are immersed in, how it's viewing spirituality itself. So, should we start with, well, I guess,
Bonnie, why
Bonnie, why
don't
don't
you
you
take the
start the
microphone and you
reading?
can start? Yes. I got a call.
What is spirituality? We hear a great deal about certain people being spiritual, and there is nothing wrong with this, provided it does not become a maudlin attitude. Spirituality is rather an elusive thing. I cannot think of a better illustration to use than to compare it with the idea of beauty, which a great artist must entertain if he is to create a worthwhile object of art. We do not say that such a one has great beauty, but that he has great appreciation for beauty. We know that the artist feels beauty, senses its presence, and to a degree communes with it, in drawing it into his own soul, that he may outbreathe it through his performance.
So we're going to stop there for a second because that's a pivotal paragraph. And one of the things that I remember reading, one of the first books I read by Deepak Chopra, where he said, if anyone tries to tell you how spiritual they are, run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. Because spirituality is a felt thing. It's a relationship that we have with somebody that transcends anything that's going out in the relative world. I look at Nancy and I say to somebody, she's one of the most spiritual people I know. But Nancy would never say to Rose, I'm one of the most spiritual people you'll ever know. It's like people who profess to be mystics. They don't go around telling you they're a mystic. I would look at Kathy and say, wow, Kathy is a modern mystic. But Kathy doesn't get to own that for herself, because when we do own that spirituality or that degree of spirituality for ourselves, or our degree of mysticism for ourselves, what's talking? Who's talking? The ego. The ego is talking. So I just wanted to put that out there at the outset. So take it, Rose.
Perfect technique alone does not result in great art. We speak of the soul of an artist, that subtle and indefinable something which is the essence of all art. This is a definite feeling, a communion with invisible harmony, the supreme being, the mind and heart of God, or the creative essence.
Go with the next one, too.
It is the same with what we call spirituality, which is a word too often misused. From our viewpoint, spirituality is one's recognition of the universe as a living presence of good, truth, beauty, peace, power, and love. And to this should be added happiness, joy, enthusiasm, and universal harmony, which, like the great rhythm of life, flows through everything.
There is a vast difference between this type of spiritual consciousness and theological dogma, or even logical arguments. It is an essence diffused, a consciousness transcended, and a faith that has passed beyond the point of argument into conviction and union and complete acceptance. Such spirituality we cannot divorce from the highest use of the science of mind. It is like the heat in fire, the colors in a prism, the invisible power flowing through a dynamo. It is like something that is caught from the invisible for the purpose of taking temporary form. It is the background of all spiritual mind treatment, and we should not separate it from the consciousness use of the law of mind.
Spirituality is a constant, consistent attempt to feel the presence of God in everything and in everyone. Such an attitude need not be put into words, because words cannot express such a feeling. But out of the feeling, words will flow, and when they do, they will always be correct. Spirituality cannot be taught, but it can be felt. It can be practiced, it can be embodied. Each in his own consciousness must experience it in his own way, and his way will always be best for him. Indeed, it will be the only way he could do it, because in the secret precinct of the mind, which is alone with God, nothing else can enter.
Pass it back to Kathy.
Listen daily to that which can only be felt, daily sensing and communing with that which is too intangible to put into words. One finds an essence flowing through one's thought, which can be neither analyzed nor described. Do not wonder whether or not you are spiritual. Rather, accepting the fact that you must be, in a sense. I need to read that again. Rather, accept the fact that you must be. In a sense, you had nothing to do with it. This is your nature. You are rooted in the supreme mind, in the everlasting spirit, in the perfect presence.
Spirituality is the consciousness that comes through communing with God. For treatment is a definite act, and however spiritual, must still take a definite form. One should not study to be spiritual as much as one should contemplate in order to imbibe the essence of spirit, to speak from its center. In this, as in everything else, practice will perfect your method, and consciousness will make your method effective. So for some of you, who's in the spiritual mind treatment class? Anybody here taking that class with Reverend Nancy and Andrea?
No.
Okay, so let's talk about spiritual mind treatment is formulaic in nature, 5 steps to treatment. And the fact of the matter is we're not treating anything at the level of effect, because a spirituality is not an effect. It is almost like a sense memory of what we started out with when we were born, because we can't really be more spiritual than we already are. But when our awareness is heightened, our sense of spirituality is also heightened. So when he says, practice will perfect your method and consciousness will make your method effective. You know, doing the treatment, 5 steps of treatment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we could do a treatment that's all over the map. We could start out like my friend Charles does, with forgiveness and for acceptance and gratitude, his first step of treatment. And then everything else falls into place. Ernest Holmes would say, all you need are the first 3 steps of treatment. God is, I am, and this is my truth. Those are what you need, the first 3 steps. You don't have to have the other stuff that goes along with it. But it's so much fun to create something, you know, to create a spiritual mind treatment on our own. So it's a practice, like meditation is a practice, spiritual mind treatment on a daily basis. Sometimes if I'm doing treatment for a basic treatment after my meditation for a whole bunch of people, everybody known in the mind of God, because I would be sitting there for an hour listing all the people that I want to include in the spiritual mind treatment. And I'm not including them in any way, we had this conversation a little bit earlier, any way to outline how I think their lives should be. What I do is I treat for their consciousness of receptivity to their absolute and large R reality. So that's really what Ernest Holmes is talking about. So to actually believe that one is more spiritual than somebody else, I think it's a matter of being self-aware, don't you think?
Yeah, I was thinking that spirituality, we have parts of ourself in expression. There's the physical part, there's emotional and mental. There's actually, as we studied in spiritual psychology, the spiritual part of you is part that exists. And we approach it from different, according to what your culture, any culture you go in, there's going to be a spiritual component to it, because it's a part of us, just like your physical being is a part of you. Your spiritual aspect is a part of you. And to me, when he's here, that in that second paragraph, where he says it's about how you experience it rather than, what is the sentence? We do not say that such a Mount One has a great beauty. You do not say that they have that great spirit, because the spirit that's in everyone is the same. It's all the spiritual. How you utilize it is the same way. It's almost like you develop it and grow in it and use it just as you use your physical body. If you develop your muscles, you can be a very strong physical person. But if you work with your spiritual aspect of your being, identify it and recognize it, and develop your relationship in that with yourself, then you will know more about who and what you are and how you can manifest it. I think this guy's name was Jung, the psychologist.
Carl Jung.
He said, by the time we in our 30s, if we haven't figured out that we have a spiritual aspect, there is a part of us that's going to be left behind. So we all have that spiritual aspect. So it's not just something that we are going to church for or going to a group for. It is part of who and what we are. Mm-hmm. And that aspect, and the more we are gaining in awareness, and it's not just one in religion, it's in a whole relationship with being. There's a spiritual component of it. And that's what we are developing and growing. And what we use these groups for is to help us grow in it. Just like you might use a gym to strengthen your body. But the main thing is we are doing it for ourselves. It is a part of who and what we are.
So one of the things one of my teachers told me years ago made me laugh out loud. Everybody laughed out loud. He said, don't think that you're going to church makes you spiritual any more than you're going to McDonald's makes you a hamburger. And I thought, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. How many of us have friends who are probably some of the most spiritual people we've ever met, and they never darken the doorstep of a church? Renson, it's really cold. If it's cold for me, then it's really cold. Thank you. So how many of us have friends like that where they never go to church? I have a friend, every day he goes and walks the hills up above Wildwood out in Thousand Oaks where he lives. And he takes photographs of critters and the wildflowers and things. And I see him as one of the most spiritual people I know. He's also an artist. I have 2 of his paintings in my home because his spirituality shows up in his art. Sometimes spirituality shows up in someone who's a seamstress or somebody who can sing or somebody who can write beautiful words. Mark Nebo comes to mind for me, you know, when he writes his daily reading that I have of his. And then I have a Native American book that is steeped in Native American culture. And that just touches my soul. You know, there's a remembrance of something when I hear that. So how many of us do know people that don't belong to a church but are spiritual? Yes, yes, yes.
But you know what I want to know? What is some take? Give me some take. What do you have? What each one of you have on spirituality? How do you see it?
Get the microphone, Kathy. I'm putting you in charge.
This is kind of, maybe you might consider a very mundane example, but today I was with my grandchildren, and the 4-year-old, so their mom, they have 4 children, and I was with the twin girls, and mom took the boys to the dentist and to the tutor and blah, blah, blah. And the 4-year-old little Ethan evidently just had a fit when she was taking her older son to the tutor, and he just sat on the stairs at the hall and just cried and just, or yelled or whatever, and he continued to have it, and she just ended up bringing him home. She wanted to go shopping, but anyway, so she brought him home, and he came into the house, and he was totally and completely delightful. I mean, nothing, you know, he was just we had the nicest time. He showed, anyway, And it reminded me of Eckhart Tolle, who had evidently a spiritual experience by one day he was falling. I guess I can't remember the exact circumstances, but evidently he just had no place to go, and he was lying down on a bench by a duck pond. He might have even spent the night there. And he looked out and he saw the ducks, and they would go, bah, 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 bah. You know, they would come at each other. And then 2 seconds later, they were just flapping their wings, you know, and going on because they were completely in the present moment. And I think that's spiritual. So I know that might not seem maybe too woo-woo or as woo-woo as you might have wanted it to be, but it was really a lovely example to me.
There are no degrees of woo-woo.
Yeah, yeah.
It just is.
It just is.
Yes.
Anyway, you know, it's just amazing. Children, they, you know, especially the younger they are, the more they have that ability to, oh, hi, how you doing? Anyway.
So I was thinking, just this idea of, I think you mentioned that we're all spiritual beings, right? And some people just, for me, I see that some people may not be aware of their connection. So when I have found myself going, oh, that person doesn't seem very spiritual, then I catch myself, I'm like, wait a second. First of all, that's very judgy, but also I'm just not seeing what I have been socialized to view as somebody who is spiritual, right? To your point, someone who is communing in their garden with nature, it's a really beautiful connection to the all that is. Someone who is caring for an elderly or a child, that's spirit in action. So I feel, and I've had people say to me, oh, you've become really spiritual in the recent years. I said, I don't think that's true. I think what I've had is an opportunity to practice, to hone skills, certain skills. And as you said earlier, this is a place where I can talk with other people about like-minded topics, like-hearted topics. So I'm able to express that side of my spirituality. It's not that there's no degree. It's not like I'm more now than I was when I was 15, but I've had the opportunity now to express ideas and share these ideas and expand in these ideas.
So sometimes it's about separating behavior, because, you know, if a person is behaving badly and you look at them and say, well, that's not very spiritual, it's inconsistent with their perfection, that they've forgotten who they are as perfect beings. And we behave badly periodically. We see evidence of it all around us, you know, right now. There seems to be the chaos, you know, reminding me of Get Smart, that show that was on TV in the 70s and 80s. You know, the organization was called Chaos. And I thought to myself, what an odd way of expressing an organizational standard, if you will, chaos. But I'm seeing it in the world right now. I'm seeing it in some of my friends who are having a difficult time. And we kind of whitewash it or sugarcoat it sometimes when we say, well, I wonder why, maybe if we ask the question, I wonder why that person's behaving badly. You know, what's going on for them that would allow them to publicly even humiliate themselves by bad behavior? And children don't have the filters that adults have, and yet we have adults who are behaving badly right now. And we can stand back as the observer of that and say, you know, what's really going on with that person? We're not excusing the behavior, and we're not hating the person or not loving the person. We're probably making righteous judgment about the behavior. And as parents, we have to do that sometimes. And as good friends, we have to do that for our friends sometimes. What's really going on with you, Bonnie? You know, why are you behaving that way? And your share the last time that we met has stayed with me for the whole time. I mean, it made such an impact on me.
About my friends
Yes.
asking what's wrong?
Yes, yes. You know, we don't just walk away from a situation like that and say, well, that's just the way that person is. We, in order to be spiritual, we get to say, are you all right? What's going on in your life? You know, is there something you'd like to talk about? And that's the kindness and the generosity of spirit that we could be. I keep talking about us being the encouragers, and we can do that as religious scientists. We can do that. Kathy?
Well, to me, spirituality, or when I feel, it's when I really am aware of that connection of the spirit within and not looking out there. But I've had experiences sometimes where I will just feel naturally connected with somebody. And like I had friends I made from the Glendale church, you know, Susie and Betty Raff, Barbara Adams, my other friend. We just connected. There was like this connection. It doesn't mean like I've ever had that experience where I met some man and said, oh, I'm going to marry him. I haven't had that. But there is that thing where, like a heart-to-heart connection. And I have a lot to say on that. And just a lot of times too, like on Saturday, for some reason it was a gloomy day, and I was feeling what I call like a sense of separation, even though we're never, you know, separated from spirit, but there was that feeling of it, and I had to ground myself back to that, you know, back to center. But I was buying into the belief, I guess, because of the gloomy weather, and I was home all day, but then spirit's always within us, and we're always interconnected. That's another thing. And I've had experiences like where, like maybe I think I'm going to call Reverend Nancy to do a treatment, but it's like I already know, I've demonstrated it. Have you ever had that where you just automatically know?
Yeah.
Or maybe Reverend Nancy does a treatment and it's like, just there's a shift, and it's one of those things to try to describe it, but it's just this, it's like a knowing, like, oh yeah, it's already there. I don't have to do any more, you know, try to make it happen.
So sometimes would it not be that Reverend Nancy doing a treatment for you is a reminder?
Yeah,
And you
right,
remember who you are.
right.
Yes. Now, one of my teachers, his answer for everything was heal the separation. Heal the separation. And that's what we do when we do spiritual mind treatment, for ourselves and for others as well. Yes.
Oh, so I believe that, you know, all beings are spiritual, and like when we light the 10 candles, the last one is for those yet unaware. I think we are all on a spectrum. I know certainly I have gone up and down the spiritual spectrum at different periods of my life, and I believe that we're all, you know, progressing at our own pace.
Yeah.
As best as we can. We're all trying to do the best job we can.
Put the microphone close to your mouth.
And so I just believe that we are all spiritual beings, you know, and we all have a degree of spirituality to our essence. And the goal in life is to really let it glow and just, you know, help others. I was doing a meditation today with some Rumi quotes, and he said, when you walk out the door, walk out as you're going to help somebody, be a lamp, be a ladder, be one other thing, I can't remember the other thing, but, you know, go out and help and glow.
Yeah. Yeah. Set an intention.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
always.
Bonnie.
Bonnie? Do you feel like spirituality has a specific meaning for you?
I have felt so separated from everything else, just like I'm my own little small moon going around the edge of everything. And that idea or way of looking at being separated from spirit, I know that it's all one large thing. I am part of that. I am part of that, so I am that too. But the psychology of becoming separated and having this element that just can't go back. It's so weird. And, I've been doing that willing to be willing and thinking about that. I have showed up for my Friday meeting with Al-Anon probably 60 or 70 times in the last year and few months. I never want to go. I just have kept showing up and kept showing up. And last Friday, my willingness kind of got me to really connect with 4 people. It wasn't really at the meeting proper, it was before and after. And that really was a wonderful feeling of being connected to all those things that you were talking about, of, a community, an organization, a part with others. And it's very interesting to be willing, because these things come at me, they come to me, and I have to do the courageous thing of showing up and being out there and feeling vulnerable. Today, I went to a lab, one of those Quest labs. I ended up being late for a lot of reasons. I had no control. And you check in and it says, you don't have an appointment, you're 10 minutes late. And I walked out and I go down the elevator thinking, I just don't want to do anything now. And this woman gets on the 4th floor and she says, how you doing? And I says, they just dumped my appointment at Quest. She says, they make appointments? And she says, I know where you can go get your blood drawn and have the test. And she goes, walk over, I'll take you. This was up by Northridge Hospital. I mean, she had wings folded up inside their jacket. She took me to the hospital, she took me to admissions, and she said, this woman needs a blood test. And it was the weirdest thing. She stayed with me for 40 minutes. And it was, for how I work, I really need to be I need to have that connection with other spiritual beings. That's really important. Who's that little French boy who lives on the planet? I mean, that's what I feel like. But these things, little,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's the part that I've figured out is, that I am figuring out is important for me. I'm not the only spiritual being in the world, in the universe.
Oh, I love the way you're sharing that, because I think that's really bringing out the point. You see this 3rd paragraph he wrote here, where he said, perfect technique alone does not result in the great art. We speak of the soul of an artist, the subtle and
Indefinable.
Indefinable something, which is the essence of all the art. Mm-hmm. It's like spirituality is who you are, and it is a journey, and it is not necessarily something that you're going to do in a church, or you're going to do we are growing and understanding the spirit, who we are as spiritual beings, how we relate. And so we have moments in which we may relate well, and we have moments which we just cannot figure out what is going on. And sometimes when we get into judgment because a lot of the society has put these borders on what it is, and that definition has made us feel like we are not part of, or we're not up to par. But the real thing is how we relate to ourselves, what we see ourselves experiencing, and how we take that self into that experience. And that is what the whole journey is about. And no, comparing it to another person's being is usually when we fall off, but it's actually comparing it to ourselves. Do I want this? Can I go here? Can I be like this? Or can I relate to this person? And when we see another person and how they are doing it, we sometimes go into judgment about how we are experiencing it. When in actuality, we are all, I feel like we are all on this journey, and we having a specific experience that we have defined for ourselves, and we have to define it ourselves. So as far as what I'm sitting here listening to you, it sounds like you are defining where you are clarifying to yourself where you are spiritually, how you are doing this. And what has happened is that you had an incident that made you reevaluate how you were doing it before or how you want to do it now. And that, and the only thing is not judging it, allowing ourselves to be just where we are and doing it just how we're doing it, and be okay with it. And I think that that's where that self-forgiveness aspect of life really comes into play, because it is our journey. Each one of us has a different journey to do with it, to step into how we relate it. Because the ultimate experience of spirituality you already have. It's totally, fully present in us. Anything that we can reach for in it is already present. But it's us exploring it and discovering it and feeling it and deciding how we want it to be is what this journey is about. Because we're whole and complete within ourselves. And anything we're learning, that anything we decide is how it is. It isn't the way Maureen says it, the way Bonnie says it, or the way Benu says it, the way Nancy says it, or the way Resident says it. It is how we are and how we are discovering this experience. You know, it's rich when you are able to define your feelings as far as what's missing and what you feel like you want. And so that is rich. That's the richness, because that's Bonnie discovered Bonnie. And it's so many of us just making it up according to what everybody else has defined, more so than knowing our own self.
I see that as a God moment.
Yeah, yeah.
I would encourage you so totally and completely to write into that.
Uh-huh.
Because there's something in accepting, first of all, help from somebody else. Mm-hmm. We're so self-sufficient. We're women of independent means. Renzen his feminine side is independent. But we really get to a certain place where we have this independence. I find it remarkable that you actually mentioned to her what had just transpired for you, that you lost your appointment. And she took it upon herself to hold your hand and to take you to someplace else where everything got taken care of. I see that as an absolute, so if you believe in, angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love commits me here, ever this day be at my side to light and guard, to rule and guide. Amen. Mm-hmm. I repeated that daily. All the Catholics, yes. But I thought I made it up. Here's what that's all about. And then I get the Book of Angels by that woman, and in the column on one side of the page is this little prayer. And it's attributed to somebody in the 14th century. You know, it had nothing to do with me. But I would love to see what you could write into that as to your vulnerability, number one, and number two, to your being able to accept somebody else's gift.
In the middle of,
You know, and not say, oh, no, you don't have to do that. You don't need to do this for me. Wait a minute. Anytime by refusing a gift somebody else gives, we diminish the giver. And so this is a God moment, pure and simple as far as I'm concerned.
And it was fascinating to observe myself. I wanted to send her on her way and explain I'm the great navigator, I'll figure this out. And rather than do that, I just went, well, she's got me in this stroller, I'll just sit here and let her. And when we parted, I stroked her shoulders and I said, put your wings away now, and thank you so much.
that is fascinating.
There's a
Bonnie.
story in there, for sure.
Beautiful.
Okay, Bonnie, I have to say, I'm so glad you said that about writing, because I think Bonnie is one of the most poetic speakers that I know. I mean, the fact that even when you were just describing what you were saying, you said, I feel like a little moon at the edge, or what, I mean, there were a couple little metaphors that you brought into what you were saying that were just magnificently beautiful. And I had the luck, I guess you could say, to drive with Bonnie up to the Sierras years ago when Fred was here. He had us all go up to the Sierras, and Marty Loff was there too. But anyway, and it was just a wonderful trip, and Bonnie and I drove up, and I was just amazed at her articulation. So I just encourage you to write what Maureen said you should write.
Yeah, I shoulded on you, but I'm sorry about that.
And
We
you know-
shouldn't should on anybody, should we?
Well, anyway, but I really I think you have, as my father had, the gift of gab. But that doesn't sound very poetic. But you have the gift of poetry. And I just want to say also that I kind of feel like there are 8 billion religions, because each one of us interprets things our own way.
Oh, very differently.
And one of the things that we would say at USM was, we're all going to get there. The only variable is time.
Yes. So I want to go to the second to the last paragraph. Nancy touched on that, where it says spirituality is the consciousness that comes through communing with God. For treatment is a definite act, and however spiritual, must still take a definite form. Your story took a definite form. You know, your being helped by this woman you didn't even know took a definite form. And, you know, sometimes the surrender part that we were talking about earlier, the surrender part is just simply saying, oh, well, I guess I'll not get my blood taken today. Well, that isn't exactly how it worked, because that's your surrender, you know? Oh, and so I just find it remarkable that you would divulge something like that to a woman in an elevator, and then you have to take responsibility for the gift that's given. You know, that was there.
But to me, it was so much beauty in the point that she came. That's what spirit does. Spirit doesn't go back to, well, no, I'm going to tell her no. No, you just surrender. Spirit just lets itself flow according to the moment. And to me, it was such a powerful moment of allowing the Spirit just took you right on because you just, and it's sometimes giving up and surrendering is what we need to do. If you look at that same paragraph that Maureen was reading, one should not study to be spiritual as much as one should contemplate in order to imbibe the essence of spirit. And to me, that's what you stepped into the essence of your spirit, and you allowed it to take you there. And then there was probably some little of what I call it, the little monkey thinking going on a little bit there about maybe you should pull back or something. But you had surrendered so much that even in the middle of that, spirit just moved you right on into it. And that's learning how to let go enough to allow that divine presence in us to carry us. That's what you did. And that's what we are learning to do, because sometimes we get so, we're going to do this and we're going to learn how to treat.
We're going to do it
and
my way. You're going to do it my way. Yeah.
Then we totally get in the way. But sometimes if you just know, since you know spirit exists, you know that, and you're looking at it and surrendering to it, it carries you into that place that you needed to do. You didn't have to wait. You went straight to have it done. Oh, that was spirit at its best.
Vino's holding on to the mic. She has something to say. Oh, good. You're just holding it.
Okay. But do. Yeah.
The other part of this, where there was a spirit, I've forgotten her name, was that woman. She knew Northridge Hospital. Her husband had been a doctor there. She knew how to do everything. And she had spirit and energy coming through her that just went, come on, I know how to do this. And it galls me that you can't just get this blood drawn. I mean, she was also playing a spirit role in what happened. She wasn't, it was like, I'm going to do this and you're not escaping from me. I mean, she really sent out energy that pulled me along. And it is hard to offer to help somebody because you never know what's going to happen.
So you need to tally up how many angels had to show up for you in order for this to happen. First of all, the person who said you don't have an appointment, then meeting the lady in the elevator, then going to the desk and having them take you in to draw your blood. What do you call those people who draw blood? Phlebotomist who came and how many people had to show up in order for this to happen for you? And we just sort of dismiss it as though, this is, wow, what a coincidence. Wait, coincidence is like a long word for God. God showing up in our lives every single day in a way that, for some of us, that we can understand. We can appreciate, the beauty of life when, as somebody said, lean down and smell the lupins. Who said that in the last couple of days? Somebody said that. Lean down. Have you ever smelled lupins? It smells like purple, And I thought to myself, well, doggone it, we used to call them stinkweeds. We never called them lupins where I lived. We called them stinkweeds. We're coming up on the end here. Anybody, Rose, we haven't heard from you. Yes. Yes? Okay.
I'll be quick. Something that came up for me when you were talking about surrender. Sometimes we think we're surrendering and we're not. And I think that's my aha for tonight. I've been holding on to this condition for too long, and I keep saying, but I've surrendered, and I've, given it to others, but there's also that part of me that's like, I'm giving it up to others, and I'm going to keep working on it myself. Because when you are socialized that you've got to do it all.
So use the first person when you talk.
When I have been
talking about me?
When I have been socialized that I have to work hard and I'm responsible for myself, so I have to do all the work. even though I'm saying I'm surrendering it, there's part of me that's still like, I'm still going to work
I
behind the
want to
scenes.
know which part.
Meaning?
Well, I'm doing my Maria Nemeth imitation. She would say, there's a part, well, I said to her one day,
Uh-huh.
there's a part of me that just is not willing to surrender this thing. I was about surrender for me, and she goes, which part of you? Define the part of you that is unwilling to surrender.
What comes up for me is that it's like just old habit.
Okay, defining it makes it a conscious choice. So now you get to surrender whatever that is, whatever your conscious choice is now, because it was subconscious before. Now you've brought it to the forefront. You can't dismantle your structure of knowing until you know you have a structure of knowing.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
There you go. Nancy, bring us to the close.
Thank you. I really think that you really put us in a beautiful place to know and to understand that the flow is always in us, and that is the spiritual presence of life. We are, as a being, growing in understanding that.
Yeah.
We all are. And that's what all this gathering is about. And so we can stop judging ourselves and go into the idea that divine presence, and do this with me, as we allow ourselves to embrace the idea that we really know that this presence of life, that which knows all, created all, is all, is the essence of our mind, our thoughts, and our whole being. And as we surrender to the idea of knowing this truth, that which is unlike this truth will fall away. Trust and know that the harmony of each and everything that's in existence is already there. And as we surrender to this idea, we go forth with the idea and understanding that it is in us, through us, and as us, that the creative presence, that power that brings life anew, moment by moment. And in this awareness and in this understanding, we can embrace where we are, how we are, and who we are, and allow it to unfold, because we have already given it our dreams, our heartfelt desires. And as we surrender to the idea that this love, this presence, this creative energy is flowing through us to bring forth our heart's desires. And so we can accept them as already so. So we can leave here at this moment, this evening, allowing ourselves to just rest in that awareness, accepting it as we rest this evening, just totally knowing that the divine presence is who I am. I am that I am. And that awareness is the truth for each and every one of us. And we join together because there's a law that will do the rest, so we can let it go. The law that's doing the rest. We just say, thank you, and know it with me as we say.
And
And
so
so
it
it
is.
is.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight.
You know, before we go, I'd like to mention, well, maybe she can.
Okay.
Just that one of our dear members, who a lot of people don't know, passed away today. And I thought we could give her.
I mentioned her in the opening.
Oh,
Oh, you
okay,
did, yeah.
okay. I wasn't here.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
Renson.
and good night.
And thank you, good night.